Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world.
Amanda Gorman became the youngest inaugural poet in United States history on January 20th, 2021, but her journey does not begin there. While growing up in Los Angeles, Gorman began writing at a very young age and had her eyes set on becoming president. At 16 years old, she was named Poet Laureate of Los Angeles. Down the road, when she was studying sociology at Harvard, she became the first National Youth Poet Laureate. At 22 years old, she read her piece, The Hill We Climb, at the inauguration of Joe Biden, joining the small group of inauguration poets before her and cementing her place in American history. This group of inauguration poets includes Robert Frost, Maya Angelou, Miller Williams, Elizabeth Alexander, and Richard Blanco. Since then, Gorman has gone on to write for the New York Times and released 3 books. She has received a Genius Grant from OZY Media, recognition from Young Arts, the Glamour magazine, the Webby Awards, and become the recipient of the Barnes & Noble Writers for Writers Award. In her career, she has also performed for Lin-Manuel Miranda, Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, and Malala Yousafzai, and has performed at the Library of Congress, White House, and Lincoln Center. On writing The Hill We Climb, Gorman told the New York Times, "I had this huge thing, probably one of the most important things I'll ever do in my career. It was like if I try to climb this mountain all at once, I'm just going to pass out." She was approached to write the piece after Jill Biden saw her reading at the Library of Congress. "They did not want to put up guardrails for me at all," Gorman said. "The theme of the inauguration in its entirety is America United, so when I heard that that was their vision, that made it very easy for me to say, great, that's also what I wanted to write about in my poem about America United, about a new chapter in our country." Gorman really wanted the piece to acknowledge the present dark chapter of American history. "We have to confront these realities if we're going to move forward, so that's also an important touchstone of the poem," she said. In her research process, she drew from Abraham Lincoln, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and 2 previous inaugural poets, Richard Blanco and Elizabeth Alexander. When asking Alexander for advice, she said, "The poem is already written, it's already done. Now it's just up to you to bring it to life as best as you can." When speaking with Blanco, he told her, "It's not just one of us up there, it's a representation of American poetry." Gorman wrote a few lines a day and ended up halfway through on January 6th. Following the events of that day, she did not sleep and spent the night finishing the piece. She rehearsed by simply reading the poem over and over again, and she stated, "The writing process is its own excruciating form, but as someone with a speech impediment, speaking in front of millions of people presents its own type of terror."
And a lot of times I talk about having a speech impediment and the difficulty of literally speaking up for myself. The voice I'm hearing aloud can't pronounce R's, it can't pronounce sh. It kind of sounds a bit garbled, but I hear this strong, self-assured voice when I'm reading this, simple text.
In The Hill We Climb, Gorman used carefully curated allusions to American history and other authors and orators. Right off the bat, she addresses the fragile state of the nation with the lines,
"When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade?"
Further down, she says unity is possible.
"And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished."
The last part of that excerpt was a nod to Lincoln's line from the Gettysburg Address. "It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who have fought here have thus so far nobly advanced." Another literary reference is in the lines,
"And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect."
This alludes to Intruder in the Dust by William Faulkner, a novel telling the story of a black farmer accused of killing a white man. In the line,
"Yes, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man."
the alliteration references the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. King. It is known that George Washington often used Micah 4:4 in his correspondences, and Lin-Manuel Miranda included this in his musical piece, Hamilton.
Like the scripture says, one shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid.
Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid.
We know that January 6th had a major impact on the writing of this piece, and that can especially be seen in these lines.
We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy.
Gorman also twists the motto of the United States, "In God we trust," into "In this truth, in this faith we trust." A second Hamilton reference quotes the message of the musical, "History has its eyes on us." The largest allusion in the piece is to Maya Angelou's "Still I Rise."
We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover.
Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise.
The poem was met with much support from America and many notable figures, including Oprah Winfrey, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and Jericho Brown. Even Barack Obama chimed in on Twitter saying she wrote, quote, "a poem that more than met the moment." However, many also had quite negative comments about her reading. In Bob Grimm Education Center in Miami Lakes, Florida, the published copy of the poem was restricted to an area for only middle school students.
Miami-Dade County Public Schools said this: no literature has been banned or removed, and that the school determined The Hill We Climb was better suited for middle school students. And it's our understanding that it was reported, Amanda, she didn't even read the book. She reported that Oprah Winfrey had written the book. We also know that that isn't true, and that she didn't think it was suitable for elementary school students. What was your initial reaction when you heard? What are your thoughts?
My initial reaction was a mix of shock and sadness at the same time. One, because I couldn't understand a reason for rendering this piece as inappropriate for elementary school students. And also because when I wrote The Hill We Climb, it was so important for me that young people would see themselves represented in a significant moment in our democratic history, and that the reality of that in that moment would be erased for young people who deserve to see themselves at a place and station like that. That was just really disappointing.
In the end, Amanda Gorman succeeded in her goals for her inaugural poem. She crafted a complex, compelling piece that addressed the moment beautifully, as well as the intricacies of America's history.
The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.